The throw has such an outstanding power behind it, but it still manages to find its way right to Isagi's foot. Isagi compliments Gagamaru and responds by telling Isagi to just finish it already. And just as he receives the ball, he starts to sprint like never before up on the field alongside Noah and Yukimiya. Isagi thinks that this is their chance as the Ubers committed too many numbers forward and that they are now vulnerable against a counterattack. But it's not going to be an easy road as he has to find the quickest path to the goal. He starts off by passing the ball to Noah, who effortlessly gets behind Nico and another Ubers defender. But out of nowhere, Aiku comes and catches him off guard and slide tackles Noah. Luckily, he had managed to get away a pass to Isagi beforehand, but Corona and Igarashi are shocked that that's not a foul, but Hiyori just tells him to keep on advancing. Isagi thanks Noah for his sacrifice and says that from here on, Yukimiya and he will finish them off. They are exactly 30 meters away from the goal and have to advance a mere 3 more meters to get a chance. Isagi passes Yukimiya, who's surrounded by Uber's defenders, but Yukimiya starts doing some crazy stepovers to save time. Meanwhile, Isagi goes right of him and tries to slip behind Aryu. He gets behind him and tells Yukimiya to sense it and to pass him. Both of them see each other, and Yukimiya manages to get away a lob pass to him, but they aren't exactly in sync, as it wasn't a lob pass as Isagi wanted, as he wanted a fastball sent right to his feet because he knows that at this level a lob pass is far too slow. And Isagi's got a point because Snuffy was able to catch up due to the lob pass, and he comes in between Isagi and the ball and gets rid of it. Because at this incredible level, even a half-second misalignment is a mistake. Isagi is pissed at his golden opportunity. No, his goal vision was dead on, but he was still one step short to outread someone with a world-class football IQ. Snuffy lands on the ground, and as the ball goes to one of the Ubers defenders, all of the Ubers start to advance as they continue another counterattack. Isagi is pissed, saying that just when they were barely managing to steal the ball and attack now, the Ubers are gonna hit them with a new, perfectly designed, multifaceted, highly coordinated counterattack. Isagi knows that he has to stop them, but just how? He doesn't know that for sure, but he knows that he's gotta get back on the defense right away and that he will figure out the rest later. Possession, counterattack, transition. After being foiled so many times, Isagi's painfully aware of how strong these guys are, but just now until Snuffy stopped them, Isagi's strategy and imagination surpassed theirs, and if he and Yukimiya were on the same page, he would have scored. However, what ifs and almosts don't mean anything, and he knows that he's got to stop babying himself. The reality is that he couldn't score, which for a striker is all that matters. It doesn't matter what brilliant idea he comes up with. At this level, if he can't produce results, then all those ideas are garbage. Isagi is determined to steal the ball and finally produce another goal and show the world his ideas. After that, we see how the Ubers are storming up on the field with their passes going flawlessly to each other. Raichi screams that their defense isn't set yet, and Gagamaru is also a bit annoyed as they just got the ball back. Lorenzo passes Baru, who's in sync with the Ubers, and Gagamaru even says that it's way more chaotic than last time. He's stressing as he seriously can't seem to figure out the right timing. But it's fine as Isagi is right by Baru. He thinks that he can just make it, and that Baru can't shoot just yet. He admits that the tactics are on the spot, plus for the sake of winning, everyone has bought into them. But there's no way that you can become the #1 playing that brand of football, saying that all that they are doing is mindlessly executing Snuffy's tactics. Since they all are playing to produce some predetermined answer, their individuality is stifled. Isagi can't even believe that Baru would be tamed so easily, and just the thought of Baru becoming the #1 striker makes Isagi laugh, saying that Baru has become such a boring and pathetic player. Isagi says this as he goes to stop the ball from Baru's foot. However, to his surprise, Baru actually sidesteps and is still in control of the ball. Everyone in the Uber squad is stunned, saying that Baru went rogue. Baru in the middle of the game just decides to have a chat with Snuffy. He says that if he had shot according to his pretty design, then Isagi would have blocked it. He asks Snuffy how often he has to embarrass himself by these imbeciles. Baru continues saying that Snuffy told him that if he went along with his plan, then Baru would become king. And if Baru plays according to his tactics and fails, then it would be Snuffy's responsibility. Snuffy says that he's right, and that he got 100 million because of it, and asks what it is that Baru is dissatisfied with. Baru then tells him that this is the 4th time that Isagi blocked his shot, saying that he thinks it's enough for him to terminate their agreement. This comes as a shock to everyone who couldn't see this coming. Even Snuffy, Lorenzo, and Isagi are all stunned as Baru's or the king's ego isn't dead, as he tells everyone that he's decided to quit this lousy job. Before we get back into the game, we get a quick flashback to Snuffy and Mick driving along the road. Mick Snuffy's best friend says that he doesn't want to be some boring adult who constantly speaks that nonsense. Snuffy agrees and says that the world is their oyster. Mick laughs and says that they are the best in the world after all, and that if they can't become the kings of football, then it's not a life worth living. After that, we are back in the game and we see Baru going alone on the field. His teammates are furious at him, but Baru tells them to shut up and calls them mindless, good-for-nothing, shitty robots. He embarrasses Ness before saying that ever since he teamed up with Snuffy, he's secretly been waiting for the opportunity to crush this stupid team, and that all he wanted was Snuffy's techniques, calling everything else trash. And now that Baru has acquired his predator eyes, he no longer plans to play together. His teammates are only starting to get angrier and angrier, and Bastard sees this as their chance to try and steal the ball from him. Snuffy asks Baru if he wants to defy him this much. Baru tells him that he does, and that the team that Snuffy created, he wants to burn it to the ground, because with Snuffy's tactics, there's no way in hell that he can beat Isagi. And after that, to everyone's surprise, Baru actually passes the ball to Aiku as he tells them all to follow him. Aiku passes the ball to Nico and encourages the whole Ubers to follow Baru's lead. Isagi is shocked, saying that the Ubers are changing their attack and that Baru hijacked the disciplined and organized team that Snuffy created for himself. Snuffy is in his own battle against Noah, and Noah asks him how it feels to be bitten by his own player for once. Snuffy, with an intense look in his eyes, says that it's awesome. He screams at Baru to show him what he's capable of. He tells him to use the Ubers that he created and try to surpass him with them. But after that, Baru tells Snuffy to shut up, saying that he admits that the team he created is elite and that the environment is a paradise for the average and the mediocre, but there isn't enough despair for Baru to thrive upon. Baru explains that when he lost to Isagi, he hit rock bottom, but only thanks to that he was able to change, become more twisted, and rise from the ashes. But Snuffy's environment is lukewarm, with Snuffy saying that he will provide him with the best options, and if they fail, it's his responsibility as the master. Baru doesn't want to live in a future where he's safe and coddled. If they are going to promote all that hope of becoming the best player in the world, then he will balance it with an equal amount of despair. If he fails, he's okay with the entire world ridiculing him, because only by going beyond the risk of despair that he can drive one's life into madness can he attain ultimate glory. Baru has now come awfully close to the goal, and Isagi says that he's gone completely off the rails, saying that he was waiting for this moment this entire time, forcing everyone to bend to his will and ideas on this high-level world-class stage, which is also the very thing Isagi wants to do. But Baru is just about to accomplish it before Isagi. But there is no way that Isagi will let that happen. He's determined to stop him, to now get devoured by this tyrant. However, Baru is currently in range, and Gagamaru is also on standby. Both Kaiser and Isagi come before him to try and block him. Isagi looks into his eyes and says that he's the only person that he'll never want to lose to. With Baru being in control of the ball, as he's standing in front of both Kaiser and Isagi, Isagi thinks that Baru only has two options, which are to either shoot the ball near the post or far from the post. Gagamaru is also already in position, so if he manages to get the timing right, he can stop it. Not to mention that Kaiser is also here, which makes both of Baru's shooting angles weakened, leaving Isagi with a huge 50-50 gamble, but he's still confident that he can crush him. But just then, Baru goes a cut into the side, and as he does that, Snuffy's comes out and asks him what's wrong, telling him to shoot and calling him a delusional wannabe king. Adding on by saying that it would be a shame if Baru was looking for help from Snuffy, and that Baru won't be able to achieve anything if he goes down that route. However, Baru tells him to shut up, and says that since coming to Blue Lock, he's become painfully aware of how he wants to change the world, and if there's no thorny or destructive path for him to walk on, then he will simply just have to create one himself. Isagi is quickly on his tail as he understands that what Baru did before wasn't a cut inside, but instead a way for him to set up his shot. We get back to Baru, who's still rambling on, and says that I don't live for some lukewarm, predetermined future, but instead that he will become king while still being an unruly brat. But in the future, if he still can't become the world's #1 king, then he will at least die an honorable death. Baru doesn't shoot anywhere where Isagi predicted, as he instead shoots the ball under both Isagi's and Kaiser's legs, resulting in a mind-blowing double nutmeg. Gagamaru is shocked as he says that there's no way he can save it, and even Aiku adds on by saying that this wasn't a designed play, but instead a total gamble shot. The ball is quickly arriving at Snuffy. Even so, Baru tells him to move as this is his future. And move he does by putting his strong core against Noah's, which makes him useless, and which also lets the ball go under his leg as well, making an outstanding and honestly mind-blowing triple nutmeg, which Gagamaru understandably has no way of saving, as the ball goes in and gives both the Ubers and Baru his second goal of the match. After that, we get to Snuffy taking his car to his best friend Mick Moon's home. As he's walking closer, he remembers Mick's words, saying that they will become the best players in the world, however. When he enters the house, he finds Mick dead on the floor. After that, we get to look into Snuffy's earlier life when he first got paired up with Mick, which none of them was especially happy with. But soon they became good friends, who got to share the feeling and the dream of playing on the field. They quickly feel like they are invisible, and say that there's nothing in the world that they can't have, and that they will definitely become the best players in the world as they win the championship final with the score 2-1. But suddenly it started to go downhill, and Snuffy called on Mick for a meeting, where he said that they had both gotten dropped from the starting lineup. This was to be expected as their performances this season have been nowhere closer to the last year. Mick adds on by saying that they might have fooled around a bit too much, and that it's time to switch the flip and go all in now. However, Snuffy says that it's impossible to do it here, as their relationship with the club, and especially the manager, is beyond repair, telling Mick that they have to start from zero, even if they have to play for some mid-tier team. But Mick finds this ridiculous, as he calls him an idiot, and says that they are kings who only play for big clubs. Snuffy doesn't listen, and says that it's time for him to wake up, telling him that they aren't world-class players anymore, but instead second-rate players. Saying that football is a constantly shifting, harsh, competitive world, it's a world where anyone can become a star overnight, while the opposite can happen as well. New players are always looking for ways that force them to grow up and choose a more robust and smarter future. Mick is quiet for a bit, before he asks what the hell it is that Snuffy is talking about, saying that they still have their promise and dream, which is to win in all of the Big 5 leagues and that they have only won in one so far. Snuffy tells him that it's still highly possible, but later on, even so, Mick just says that he's boring, telling Snuffy that if he's not going to pursue the same dream as he is, then he can get out, which Snuffy does. However, he tells Mick to not come crying back for him later on. Mick just laughs and says that he won't change the way he lives, and says that in any era the people who ultimately change the world aren't the intelligent people who live their lives the right and safe way, but instead some stupid brat who possesses a childish, nonsensical dream. After that, we get back to Snuffy, who is hugging Mick's cold and lifeless body while crying his eyes out, apologizing to Mick that he couldn't share the same dream until the end, saying that they couldn't fulfill their dream together, but that he will continue to dream and make it a reality. And with that, we are back to the Ubers game where everyone is going to celebrate Baru's spectacular goal. Snuffy makes his way over there and compliments his goal, telling Baru that there was no way that he could have predicted that goal and that his ego surpassed every one of his designs, and calling it Baru's win. Even so, Baru says that he doesn't need Snuffy's praise or hindsight analysis as their partnership is over. However, there's one thing as a footballer that Baru wants to tell him. Baru says that retiring after this season, just because he fulfilled a dream he shared with his dead friend, asking Snuffy if this is his so-called adult way of living. He tells Snuffy that he won't let him just run away and disappear with his precious trophies just yet, not while he is still playing at least. Baru finally takes his hand away from his face and looks Snuffy dead in the eyes, saying that he better not retire and that the two of them still have a score they need to settle. Snuffy is approaching him while laughing, but not just that, as he tells Baru that he won't retire as he's the best player in the world after all. While he's saying this, he also has an internal dialogue with Mick, as he says that with the advice he gave him before, Snuffy can finally believe him now, as until the day he dies, he as well is a goddamn brat who selfishly pursues his dreams. This hypes up all of the Uber players who are extremely happy to know that their captain and also idol won't retire just yet, and it even makes Lorenzo confess his love to Baru. However, it's not over just yet, as both Baru and Isagi are thinking that the last goal will settle this once and for all, as they have an intense look on their face. All of the Ubers players go storming off into Snuffy's arms. However, looking at this from afar, we have Isagi who's pissed to the extreme, screaming his whole heart out. He thinks that Baru stole his spotlight, and that Baru was always aiming for this from the start. The timing to shoot between Isagi's legs to freeze Gagamaru from reacting. Even went as far as hijacking Uber's system for himself and using it to score goals, ending it by saying that Baru managed to completely devour him. But just then, Raichi comes over and apologizes, saying because he was man-marking Snuffy, he couldn't fully contain him. However, Isagi denies that and says that he did his job. He disrupted and eliminated some of their options, and that they just couldn't score and got their ass kicked on the counter because of his tactics. Isagi was so close, but yet he can't see a vision of himself winning against Bauru or Kaiser. Just then, the announcer goes off and says that the star change system is over, and that both masters have to leave the field and make their substitutions. This gives Isagi more puzzle pieces as he knows that the field is just about to shift.